Okay, everybody, just give us a second and hang tight as I see attendees kind of filing into the Zoom room here. We will get started in just a minute. All right, it's 10:01. I think we're going to get started. Hi, everybody. I'm Denise Mickelson, the Communication Director for the Colorado Restaurant Association. We're very grateful that you're here with us this morning to hear from our friends at the Department of Labor all about family for restaurant operators. Just for housekeeping purposes, you can see in the chat, there is a sign up for family newsletters, which are very, very helpful. This webinar will be recorded and it will be available on demand on the CRA website, and the link is there as well. It's corestaurant.org/education. So give us a day or so to get that link up. If you have any questions, our Director of Government Affairs, Colin Larson, is also here. So please put all your questions into the Q&A function, and we will address those after the presentation, which is about 20 minutes or so. And I think that's about it. Again, if you have any questions that we didn't cover as we go along, throw them into the Q&A. And I'm going to introduce Kristen now from the Department of Labor.
Hello, thank you so much for having us. My name is Kristen Nichols. I'm she, her. I'm one of the communications strategists or FLACs here at the new Family and Medical Leave Insurance Division. So I set up presentations like this with experts that can walk everybody through everything. And we're lucky today to have one of the very best here, Adam Sirimarco. He's a senior policy advisor for FAMLI, and I'll let him take it away.
Oh, thanks, Kristen. Yeah, hi, everyone. My name is Adam Sirimarco. Like Kristen said, I'm a senior policy advisor here at the Family Division. That just means I'm one of the Family Division's attorneys. So today I'm just here to talk to you a little bit about Family. I'm going to go over some basics of the Colorado program, how people are using it, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. So on the agenda for today, I'm going to do an overview of the Family program, talk about how family benefits are used, talk a little bit about the difference between Family and FMLA, the federal program. I'll also talk a little bit about compliance basics surrounding retaliation, interference, job protection, and reinstatement, as well as some stuff about quarterly reporting of wages. Finally, we're going to go over the small business guide that should be useful to most folks in the room, and then we'll have time for live questions at the end. So first update here, and this is kind of an old update at this point, but paid family benefits is here. So family and medical leave insurance was voted in by Colorado voters in 2020, and we started taking premiums in 2023, and benefits just launched in January. So far, we're very pleased with how the system is working. Everything seems to be going pretty well. Most things are actually going slightly better than expected. And in a little bit, I'll talk about some statistics for what the family program has seen. First, I want to discuss a little bit about what is Family. So Family is a program, it's a social insurance program funded by premium contributions by employers, sometimes deducted from employee paychecks, that provides up to 12 weeks of partial pay replacement for Colorado workers to take care of themselves and their loved ones during certain life events. The program covers all workers in Colorado, including independent contractors, sole proprietors, gig workers, all those folks who consider themselves self-employed, as well as employees of local governments who choose to opt into the program individually if their employer opts out. The family program is funded, like I said, by premiums that are capped at 0.9% of wages, half of which can be deducted from employee paychecks. Also, small businesses, as we'll discuss a little bit later, don't have to pay half of those premiums. Family participation for the self-employed, as well as for employees of opted-out local governments, is entirely optional. So self-employed folks and employees of local governments who don't want to participate certainly don't have to pay the premiums and don't have to opt into the program. So let's talk a little bit about what events are covered. So there are 5 broad sets of events that are covered under family leave. The first is managing a serious health condition of your own, which can include pregnancy. The second is caring for a family member. The third is caring for a child who is new to your family, either through birth, adoption, or foster placement. Next, making arrangements ahead of a family member's military deployment, or to those who are dealing with the immediate needs and impacts arising out of domestic partner violence, sexual assault, stalking, those sorts of things that are involved in safe leave claims. Those are 5 broad areas that are covered by FAMLI. So let's take a look at the numbers. So these numbers aren't quite up to date. These are through June of 2024. But in that time, the FAMLI program has paid out $311 million in benefits to about 62,632, exactly 62,632 approved family claimants. During that time, the average payment was about $915 per week to each claimant, and 44,000 people have completed their family leave claims in that time. The program is really serving a lot of Coloradans. Some more numbers for you here. 96.7% of claimants filed their claims using the My Family Plus online portal. What that means is that only about 3% of people actually needed help filing their claim. About 97% of people were able to self-serve, and we're very proud of that. We think we have one of the best online systems, the best technological experiences of any state that is currently offering paid family and medical leave. About 38,510 Colorado workers submitted family claims to care for their own serious health condition during that time from until the end of June. 32,834 Colorado workers submitted family claims to bond with a new child, that parental leave. So we're about half and half between those two, and those are by far most common types of leave claims. On average, claimants are taking 53.3 days of leave on a continuous claim. So they are taking right around a month and a half off, a little more than that, even though they are allowed 12 weeks off, which is just shy of 3 months. So our average claim is quite a bit less than the maximum that's allowed. But that's to be expected because family benefits are only a partial wage replacement, and most people are fairly incentivized to get back to work. Next, I'll talk a little bit about how FAMLI is funded. So like I said before, FAMLI is funded through premiums. Those premiums are always paid to us by the employer, meaning the employer, no matter what size they are, is responsible for sending in those family premiums. However, we split this out into what we call the employer portion and the employee portion. When we say employee portion, what we mean is that that portion, even though the employer is responsible to pay it to the family division, can be deducted from the employee's paycheck. So employers with 9 or fewer employees only pay the employee portion, that's 0.45% of wages, and every single penny of that can be deducted from the employee's paycheck if the employer so chooses. For larger employers, those with 10 or more employees, they pay double that, 0.9% of wages, half of which can be deducted from the employee paycheck, half of which must be paid directly by the employer. For those who are participating self-employed folks or participating local government employees, for a local government who's opted out, they only pay the employee portion, that would be the 0.45%. So they're only paying that the half of those premiums. And of course, there's a lot of people who pay no premiums because they choose not to participate. So if a local government has opted out of the program, if someone is self-employed, or if the employer has a private plan, no premiums are due. One special note about the private plan is that this is a program where employers are allowed to replace family with their own program, meaning they have to pay out benefits directly themselves, or an insurance company will. They pay the insurance company premiums, or they fund it themselves, and then they don't have to fund the family program. So next, we'll talk a little bit about details of the family program. So premiums right now are set at 0.9% of wages. and that amount is fixed through 2024. For 2025 and beyond, the director of the family division sets the premium rate according to a formula that is based on the monetary value of the fund for each year. And it's a little complicated, but basically we have to make it so that the premiums reflect how much is actually going out. And they could go up or down, but they are capped at 1.2%. So no matter what, even if they go up, they will never exceed 1.2% of wages. Next, I'll talk a little bit about My Family Plus Employer. So My Family Plus Employer is our web portal for employers. We're actually very proud of this. So My Family Plus Employer is more technologically advanced than just about any other state that is offering this kind of leave program. We have more options for employers to view material online and to perform the necessary tasks online than any other state. On that page, you're going to find step-by-step instructions for employers, local governments, and TPAs. All of our how-to guides. We also have a lot of how-to videos on how to register for the system if you're a new employer or if you just forgot a while back when we started taking premiums. We also have additional quick reference guides for third-party administrators, TPAs. If you use them, file specifications for those people, sample files for when you have to bulk upload wages, and things like that. And there's also some information about self-insured private plan applications. Again, we have all information on all of our online services through both English and Spanish. So next, let's talk a little bit about the life cycle of a family claim. So this goes through kind of the happy path of what happens when somebody submits a claim that gets approved from start to finish. So the first thing that's supposed to happen is the worker is supposed to tell the employer. Usually this can happen before they file a claim for benefits. If a leave is foreseeable, employees need to notify their employer at least 30 days in advance of the leave, and they can only file a family claim up to 30 days in advance of the leave start date. So oftentimes the first step is going to be that the employer is notified of the leave, unless of course it's not foreseeable, like a physical injury. After that, the worker begins their claim in My Family Plus. And My Family Plus, after the claim is submitted, tells the employer that a claim has been submitted as well. So that way employers have two different ways of knowing that a claim is filed. Their employee should tell them, and we will also tell them. After that, we collect a lot of information to determine whether the person is eligible for family benefits. In the case of a serious health condition, this means that a healthcare provider is going to have to certify that health condition through a medical certification form that we require. In other cases, we're requiring other kinds of documents to prove that someone is eligible. Like on a parental bonding leave claim, we're going to require a copy of a birth certificate or some other document that shows that there was a new addition to your family. After that, once the family division has all of the information necessary to either approve or deny the claim, the family division will make that decision. And if the family division approves the claim, the family division will tell the worker and the employer more or less simultaneously. Those notices get sent out pretty much back to back within a matter of minutes. The worker then tells the family division that they have started their leave. So you can get approved in advance of taking your leave. But the next and final step in order to get paid is that the worker needs to confirm that they've actually started their leave. That way we don't pay people who decided just not to take it. After that, the family division pays the worker throughout their leave. If the worker has any changes of their family claim, such as if they went back to work early, they have to tell the family division in the middle of their claim. That way they don't get overpaid benefits, and they are responsible for paying back benefits that they've been overpaid. And family tells the employer of any changes as well once we're notified by the employer. Next, I'll talk a little bit about the differences between family leave and the FMLA. So we hear a lot of questions about how family works and how it's different from the FMLA. So the FMLA, by and large, differs in two ways. First of all, it's not paid leave. And second of all, it has a much smaller scope. So the FMLA only covers large employers. It gives workers of companies with 50 or more employees the ability to take 12 weeks of unpaid leave off for certain life events, most of which overlap with the qualifying events for family leave. This graphic outlays some more differences in how the family leave is different from the FMLA. Obviously, the FMLA is a federal program. There is no wage replacement. It does include job protection similar to family, but coverage is based on hours worked in the previous year for FMLA, whereas in family, eligibility is dependent on whether you have $2,500 or more of wages within the last 5 quarters. FMLA eligibility is determined by employers, whereas for family benefits, eligibility is determined by the family division. These can be used simultaneously and are meant to be used simultaneously. If folks are taking family leave, that is meant to run concurrently with FMLA. Be happy to answer any other questions you have about this at the end of the slide. That's usually a pretty popular topic for questions. Next, we're going to go over some compliance things. So we're going to talk a little bit about retaliation, interference, and reinstatement. So you may have heard that family leave comes with job protection. What we mean by job protection is that folks who have worked for their employer for at least 180 days have a right to reinstatement. And what that means is they are entitled to be restored by the employer to the position that they held when they started leave, or at minimum, an equivalent position if that position no longer exists. An individual, well, I guess if the position no longer exists, there's no right to, no responsibility to restore their employment. If you've laid folks off, we'll talk about that in just a minute. But an equivalent position is fine as well. It doesn't have to be the exact same position. An individual is considered currently employed on any day of their work, their days off, and any paid or unpaid leave. That means those, for the purposes of those 180 days, we're not like counting weekend days and saying, well, you didn't work, or counting vacation time and saying, well, you didn't work. It's 180 days from their start date. As long as they, for any time off, they were expected to return. If they, quit and then came back, that could potentially interrupt their 180 days, but any absence where they're expected to return. An employer is not obligated to reinstate an employee if the position has been eliminated due to legitimate downsizing or reorganization. An employer is also not obligated to reinstate an employee if the employee cannot perform the essential functions of their job any longer following their family leave. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about interference. So by law, interference means any act or omission that, regardless of intent, interferes with any right or protected activity under the Family Act. Examples include intimidation or threatening conduct intended to discourage an employee from filing for or accessing family benefits, or providing false or misleading information intended to interfere with an employee's ability to access family benefits, such as falsely telling one of your employees that they don't qualify for family benefits. The Family Act also forbids retaliation in addition to interference. Retaliation is defined as discriminatory activity, or discrimination based on protected activity. So this includes subjecting an employee to adverse employment action, including discipline, discharge, suspension, transfer, or assignment to a lesser position in terms of job classification, job security, or pay, or something like that. Retaliation can also include failure to reinstate an employee upon return for leave if the only reason that the failure to reinstate is that they took family leave or they have job protection, as I said earlier. Or failing to maintain the confidentiality of employee information related to requests for family leave. That last one may also count as interference. Finally, we're going to talk about some directions for reporting suspected fraud. So one of the things we hear from employers a lot is that people are filing for family benefits using one of their employees' stolen identities or an ex-employee's stolen identity. So employers, we rely on employers a lot for um, fighting fraud in terms of notifying us, because the employer is the one in the best position to know whether this person is actually taking family leave or not, whether they're even employed with you anymore. So employers are encouraged to send us a fraud report if nobody with that name or social security number in the claim documentation that the family sends to them actually works for you. So if we send you a notice that says Jane Smith applied for family leave from your employment, you've never heard of us, that's a pretty good sign that there's fraud being committed. Also, a person with the same name or social is working for you, but the name is different on the paperwork, or vice versa. Also, a person with the same name or social works for them, but reported a different work schedule. So you'll get a report of the work schedule when you receive a notification of a family claim. And if someone is saying to the division that they work 20 hours a week, but you happen to know they work 80 hours a week, that might be a decent indication that that's a fraudster. You can report fraud online. If you just go to our website and type report fraud into the search bar, this page will come up and give you some instructions on how to make that report. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about late fees in terms of paying premiums as well as reporting wages. So for the family division, wage reports are due every quarter. Due the end of the month following each completed quarter. So that would be the end of April, the end of July, etc. And for employers who do not report wages on time or do not pay premiums on time, there is potential penalties. So I believe up to $50 per occurrence per individual to the extent that wages are not reported to the family division. There can also be interest charged on unpaid premiums. And there is also an amended wage penalty. So there's no such thing as just reporting zero wages on time and then amending it later in order to slide it under the window. The family division requires at least mostly accurate information to be submitted on time. So if an amended wage report comes through and the employer is amending the wages for anyone up 25% or more, the division also assesses an amended wage penalty. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Healthy Family and Workplaces Act. Just 1 minute. So this is a law that is somewhat similar to family. It's called HIFWA. Sounds to me like somebody's sneezing, but we'll just blow right past that. HIFWA is somewhat similar to family, but quite a bit different. So the difference is that HIFWA requires employers to pay workers' entire wage for every eligible hour of leave taken, whereas family provides only a partial wage replacement at maximum 90% of the individual's average weekly wage. Family is also different insofar as it does not offer paid absences for grief or inclement weather or school closures or an evacuation like HIFWA does. So family benefits are a little bit narrower in scope, although family benefits do offer some things that HIFWA does not offer as well. Family benefits are for a medical condition require verification from a healthcare provider, but for HIFWA, there is no doctor's note that's required. Unfortunately, not a particular expert on HIFWA. I do know that it requires up to 48 hours per year, 1 hour of leave per 30 hours worked. If you have any questions about HIFWA, I'll do my best to answer them, but I may have to pass you along to the Department of Labor Standards and Statistics if you have any questions about that. Finally, I'd like to talk to you about our small business guide. So this is a resource that I think is really very handy for small businesses. This includes details about family and business structures, including the details on different types of business and corporations and how that affects what you should do, what you have to do with family, or what you can do with family in terms of opting into coverage. Some resources about how to count your employees. Like I said earlier, we have different or different premium thresholds for size of an employer. So this has all of the information you need to know about how to count your employees for the purposes of determining if you're 10 or more or 9 or fewer. A lot about the family benefits and taxes, meaning the taxability of family benefits, as well as some other information about what we do in terms of sending 1099s and such, and then a lot of information about how family works with FMLA. I would highly recommend this if you have any questions about family. This should be a pretty good go-to, and it should mostly answer all of your questions. But of course, if it doesn't, we are always here to help. You can find us a number of ways. Our website, family.colorado.gov, is a good source of information broadly. You can also find us on social media at Colorado Family. And then we have a very good call center, 1-866-CO-FAMILY. That's open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. The wait times on that line are very short. You should be able to get your question answered really fast. Another thing we're very proud of, by the way, I tried to call, not to throw a particular state under the bus, but another state's helpline just to test, and I was on hold for about 35 minutes before I got a question answered. I think our average hold time is under a minute, so we're very accessible, and we'd love to hear from you. With that, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Adam. Okay, we have a few. The first one, how does family notify the company? If a worker did not notify the company, then filed a claim and just didn't show up for work, what is the correct response?
Sure. So the family division is going to notify the employer by mail at the address that the employer has given the family division when the employer registered. So that's a good thing to make sure that you've registered using a correct mailing address, or at least you have access to the mail that is going to that. There's also an online portal that has information about claims that you can access there. There's no, I think there's also electronic notifications by email. Don't quote me on that, but I believe we also send an email out in addition to the physical mailing. And then if an employee is just absent out of nowhere and you haven't received any notification from family, you can always call the division and ask the division if there is a filed claim. Remember that family leave is protected, and someone cannot be terminated or adverse action commenced against them simply for taking family leave. However, there is still requirements that they have to tell the employer about the leave, and if they fail to do that and the leave was foreseeable, that they could potentially be disciplined.
Okay, thank you. Next question, is any kind of pay allowed while on family leave? For example, a salaried employee who would regularly receive a quarterly bonus or profit share, but is on leave during the time that these would be regularly paid.
Sure, yeah. So the family division does not regulate wages paid during the family leave, and wages includes salary, bonus, commission, other things like that. And so to the extent that any one of those things is paid while someone is on leave, that won't hurt their family claim whatsoever.
That's clear. Is HFWA the same as Colorado sick pay?
I'm not sure what you mean by Colorado sick pay, but I'm going to go out on the limb and say yes. So that is the required sick leave time that Colorado mandates. It is required that you accumulate 1 hour of leave for 30 hours worked up to a maximum of 48 hours per year. That is the same.
Okay, cool. Can an employee phase in upon returning to work and work limited hours, claiming partial wages from family and partial wages from the employer?
Yes, as long as they have family leave left. So we also allow claims, not just continuous claims, but what we call intermittent and reduced leave schedule claims. And so someone can take half their time off from work, and we only count that as half a week of family used. So if somebody was out for, let's say, 6 weeks, they could work half time for another 12 weeks before they run out of family benefits, because those 12 weeks would only count as another 6 weeks on top of their first 6.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. How is average weekly wage calculated? Are quarterly bonuses taken into account for salaried employees going on family leave?
Yes, quarterly bonuses are taken into account. So the average weekly wage is calculated based on the most lucrative quarter in the last 5 completed calendar quarters for that employee. And that includes the current job from which they're taking leave, as well as any former job. The only thing it does not include are current jobs from which someone is not taking leave. So if you have 2 jobs and you're only taking leave from this one, we wouldn't include wages from this other job, but we would include wages from every other job. And everything is part of that: bonuses, commission, everything really is that goes into the top line number of a paycheck. For the most part, there are some minor exceptions. Is considered for the calculation.
Hey,
Denise, I had an additional question. You had talked about the family premiums being re-examined based upon a formula. Can you talk about when does that re-examination take place during the calendar year? If there's a determination that that premium needs to be adjusted either up or down, when would we expect to hear that announcement? And does it have to take place only on the beginning of the calendar year, or what would be the phase-in schedule if the premiums were to be adjusted?
Sure, yeah, good question. So for the 2025 calendar year and every calendar year thereafter, what we do is we reset the premiums on January 1st of every year. And so to the extent that there is a change, you should hear about that really right at the beginning of January, so that you know what's happening for paychecks that are going to be issued in January. Keeping in mind that premiums are due based on when the paycheck is paid and not when the money is earned. That means if the pay period was in December, but the pay date is in January, you'll end up paying the new premium on that. And we realize that that takes some time to get into. And so I believe that happens right away at the beginning. And then it's a set formula, which means there's not a ton of wiggle room. And so we run those numbers, and you should be hearing that right at the beginning of the year.
Great.
any other questions, Colin? I'm not seeing any others in the Q&A. And so if that, is the end of our question session, then I think that is probably the end of our webinar. We really appreciate Kristen and Adam being here and partnering with us to share this information. To reiterate, the recording of this webinar will be at corestaurant.org/education, and by tomorrow, I would guess. And again, check out the chat for the link to the family newsletters, which I personally find very helpful, and I share in our CRA newsletter with our members that info all the time. And just thank you very much. We appreciate your help.
Well, thanks for having me.
Happy to do it. Okay, everyone have a great day. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.